The light is red, the kids are in bed, which means it is time for Mile High Musings with me, Aaron Yowell, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. What is good, everyone? Welcome to episode 3 of Mile High Musings here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I am your host, Aaron Yowell, and I hope you all had a wonderful 4th of July and a wonderful week. I still have all 10 fingies and all 10 toes, although we did try and burn down my buddy's house on Tuesday. Not really, but you know, when the guy tells us that the fireworks are only going to go off about 6 feet high, and it goes 60 feet high, clearly his strong suit was not math in school. Let's breathe in that rarefied mountain air and get into some sports takes a mile above the rest. Today we're going to talk Rockies baseball and how they limped pedestrianly into the All-Star break. We're finally going to dive into CU Buffs football. We're going to just scrape the tip of the iceberg and look at their schedule. Then we're going to have a little fun playing What If with some conference and division realignments for some major sports. And of course, the ever-changing NCAA college football as we kick off realignment week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. If there's time, we're going to get into the Nuggets' first Summer League game, because as we're recording, they're playing their second Summer League game and losing, last time I checked. But it's Summer League, so who cares? And then we're even going to get into the Rapids and championship odds for teams that play in the same city, in the same arena. But before we get to that and all that is good, let's handle our business. For the last 9 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok to keep up with the latest in sports and with our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website, iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and all of our show pages with personal bios and the podcast feed for each individual show, including this one, Mile High Musings. Check out the show page at iesportsradio.com/Mile High Musings. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the IE Sports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop, including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeve shirts, hoodies, and so much more. For nearly a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans and for the fans, and we thank each and every one of you for all of your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports. Now, before we jump into segment 1, like last week, I need to do some corrections because, as Willie Shakespeare said, to err is human. Last week I said I thought Jokic would be on the cover of 2K24. Did I just call him Jokic? I'm a Denver Nuggets fan. I must have looked at that and thought Joker and Jokic and squashed them together in some sort of weird summer mishmash. Anyways, I said I thought Jokic would be on the cover of 2K24. Turns out it's going to be Kobe Bryant. I'm not even mad. Rest in peace, Mamba. That's a whole other thing. So let's get into segment 1, y'all. Let's talk about the Rockies week in review, leading it off here on Mile High Musings on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Monday, July 3rd was an off day, a travel day to Houston. And they kicked off a 2-game set in Houston on Tuesday and Wednesday. And my in-laws live in Houston. full disclosure, my wife and my daughters and I, we live in North Texas. Yes, I'm a Colorado fan. Yes, I stay up to date. That's who I am. As I talked about last week, we bleed orange and blue and burgundy and blue and burgundy and blue and gold in this house. And usually we spend the 4th of July with my in-laws who live in Houston, like I said. And had it not been for my new job, a 4-month-old, the fact that the holiday fell on a Tuesday, which is like the absolute, maybe one of the worst possible choices for the holiday to fall, we didn't get to see them. What's the point of all this? I would have fought tooth and nail if we were in Houston to go to the ballpark and catch the Rockies lose. Play. So on Tuesday, K-Free got the start and lost. It's kind of Kyle Freeland's modus operandi here. He gave up 9 hits and all 4 of the runs in the 4-1 loss to the Astros. My dude, who is supposed to be the best pitcher on this team, hasn't won since school was in session. May 14th, to be exact. And last week, when he lost, he got run support. So I don't know. It's very frustrating to me that your ace is terrible. Chris Bryant hit something other than a single in the game. No, in fact, he hit his first home run since returning from the injured list. Now, unfortunately, in this 4-1 loss, Ezekiel Tovar was held hitless, which ended his 15-game hit streak just like that. And then on Wednesday, we lost 6-4. Chase Anderson. I was looking at the wrong line. Chase Anderson got the ball for the Rockies and quickly gave it back. He gave up 5 runs in 4 innings, and at that point, it was too late. The offense tried to cut into the lead. They made it 5-4 in the 7th with home runs from Grichuk and Crone, but it was too little too late. Tovar did pick up a hit and scored a run, but for what? Rockies left 4 runners on base in the game, and from what I understand of the game of baseball, it is incredibly hard to score when there are no dudes running around the bases. Frustrating. Thursday was another travel day. This time off to San Francisco. Oh my gosh. We're going to get into this later when we play What If, but that's one of the teams I can't stand watching the Rockies play, and I guess it's because they always kick the living daylights out of us. Well, they don't kick the living daylights out of us. They beat us like 1-0, 4-0, 3-2. But not on Friday. On Friday, the Rockies actually won 5-2 in San Francisco. Now, last week I talked about the Rockies' lack of offensive punch at home and how frustrating it was because they play in a hitter's ballpark. So when I look at their schedule and I see that they have a trip to San Francisco in the books, my heart sinks. Because we don't win pitchers' duels or close games. Or actually, any games right now. Maybe half. You're right, not even half. But we did. We won a 5-2 game in a pitcher's ballpark. Austin Gomber picked up the victory. I love that name. He is 7-7 on the season, and he has the most wins of anybody on the pitching staff. He went 6 innings, gave up 2 runs, tallied a strikeout, and put the Rockies in a position to win from jump. And the offense gave him support right off the bat. Pun intended. Scoring 2 in the first off a Ryan McMahon homer. Giants tied it up in the 6th with a 2-run homer of their own before the kid. That's right, Ezekiel Tovar hit his 9th homer of the year. This one of the 3-run variety to put the Rockies ahead 5-2. And that was game, folks. Since I have started this podcast, I do believe that is probably the most ideal game the Rockies have played. Obviously, it's not a perfect game, but it's the most ideal game the Rockies have played. They used 4 pitches, which still seems like a lot to me, maybe one too many. It could be that Major League Baseball right now is a 4-pitcher, sort of get you through a game. But they scored early. They held off a rally and then put the game away, and their stars contributed. So that's exactly what you want. And unfortunately for us, it was a flash in the pan. Saturday, 5-3 loss. Connor Siebold goes 3 2/3, giving up 3 runs and striking out 3 and walking 1. When Siebold exited the game, the Rocks were only down by 1. I looked at the pitch count, 75. I didn't get a chance to watch the game. Again, afternoon game. I live in North Texas. I did everything I could to try to watch it, aside from maybe downloading a virus on my computer, and I wasn't in the mood for that, especially to watch the Rockies lose 5-3. But everything I saw, yeah, the pitch count was maybe a little, I mean, honestly, it was a little high for 3 2/3 for 4 innings, but it didn't seem like he was leaking. Tovar was held hitless again in this one. CJ Cron had 2 hits and an RBI. We ended up using 5 pitchers, and I just talked about how 4 pitchers seemed like a lot. We used 5 pitchers to lose by 2. San Francisco used 4 pitchers to win by 2. And then today, my boy K Free, second loss of the week, third loss in the last 2. I mean, he gives up a solo homer in the 4th, and that was it. 1-0 loss. Rockies were held to 7 hits. Again, you're not going to win games if you're not getting dudes on base. So the Rockies mope into the All-Star break at 34-57. And rightfully so, there's a lot of speculation about who from the Rockies are available via trade. As we take a pause, go to Seattle, have an All-Star break, and then come back and hopefully finish with less than 100 losses. Doesn't look good, mathematically speaking. But you got to think CJ Cron, Grichuk, McMahon, they're probably all on the table. And they're probably all on the trade block for, prospects. Because that seems to be the way that the Rockies are going. And I don't want to see those guys go, especially those 3, because they're not old. They're not pups, 21, 22 years old, making a contribution. But the bottom line, y'all, is the Rockies are terrible. And if the Oakland A's, soon to be the Las Vegas A's, weren't so bad, the Rockies would be the worst team in Major League Baseball. And statistically, they're right there. So it's very frustrating. It's going to take an act of God for them to be good soon. I'm going to check in with the chat because I can see it out of my peripherals going to town. Good to see everybody in the chat. Larry B, what's good? Mike, thanks for stopping in. Take a trip to Colorado. Look, I recommend it. It's beautiful, especially this time of year when you can open the windows at night and you might need to carry a jacket at night and it still gets warm during the day, but it's amazing. So, I love it. We are... Yeah, Larry, you are a fan of the 25-1 Angels victory over the Rockies. Yeah, all Angels fans were, and all Rockies fans went, yeah, that's about right. So we're going to get to some of your CU buff 6 degrees of separation there, Larry, in a minute. But just want to check in with the chat. Thanks for stopping by. It's really cool to be here week 3. Stinks that I got to talk about the Rockies being terrible, but facts are facts. I'm objective. I'm real. As a teacher, I told my students that I'm going to be honest with you because you're not going to get any better and you're not going to learn anything if I mollycoddle and, just blow sunshine and rainbows all the time. So I vowed in episode 1, 2 weeks ago, to learn more about the Rockies, to figure out what it is, to try to find out why they're terrible, because I don't believe that it's just like, well, Colorado's a terrible baseball city. I mean, it's not. I talked last week about how it's an incredibly good baseball state, and it's just not translating up, which is weird. So I was listening to Paul Holden from the Locked On Rockies podcast of the Locked On Network this week. It's honestly become like my first or second listen of the morning after my workout before I log into work, because I got to figure out what's going on. It's frustrating. And he postulated that, honestly, the Monforts should think about a Coors Field renovation and put on a retractable roof. Because like I was just telling Mike from the chat, Colorado's beautiful. But we all know how terrible it is. Okay, let me walk that back. I don't know because I never played baseball. But I guarantee you it's terrible to play baseball in March and April and the end of September when it's starting to get cold. Maybe a roof would bring better players. It might also tame the long ball, which, if the Rockies aren't going to take advantage of it, what good is it? I don't want anybody else coming in and hitting the long ball on us. And I will tell you right now, if this organization isn't careful, if they don't figure it out and get it together, it's not going to be much longer before there are talks of the Rockies moving to a different city. It's been 30 years. We have had one single glimmer of greatness. Other than that, we've been pretty terrible. And it starts in our own ballpark and in our own division. Something's got to change. They need some Nuggets culture. Coach Prime needs to go up there and yell at the boys at 20th and Blake. I don't know. Y'all, it must be a banner day because I went long on the Rockies. But we have got to take a break. On the other side, let's talk CU Buffs football. Get into their schedule as a sort of Buffs football primer. You, my friends, are listening to Mile High Musings on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's up, sports fans? You're listening to IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your favorite West Coast Wisconsinite, Bernie Bango, and if you're a cheesehead, come listen to my show, Big Cheese Sports, where we road trip around America's Dairyland, previewing, reviewing, predicting, debating, and digging into all that is Wisconsin sports at the college and pro levels. Join me on IE Sports Radio, Sundays at 1 p.m. Central Standard. Bernie out.
What's up, everybody? This is Taryn Rodriguez. Are you a fan of volleyball? Are you a fan of Thunder Spikes? Then I have the show for you, Set Point, where I cover NCAA men's and women's volleyball, high school boys and girls volleyball, beach volleyball, and even professional volleyball. Catch the action every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Cue the fight song, baby. Shoulder to shoulder, we will fight, 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 fight. Here on Mile High Musings, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Don't forget to give the show a follow on Twitter at Mile High Musings _IESR. And don't forget to check out our website, iesportsradio.com, for a full list of all of our shows. Thanks again, chat, for being here. I honestly wasn't going to sing that, but I learned that fight song while I was in college up the road at UNC. Go Bears! Way before I learned my own fight song. And it's, D2 football versus the college football team I grew up watching, and quite honestly, the only college football team that I prefer to watch. But y'all, they was bad. For a minute. So come on, Coach Prime. Hashtag we coming. I am so incredibly excited about Deion Sanders as the head coach of the University of Colorado Buffaloes football team. I got to hang out with my dad a little bit yesterday, and we were talking about it on the way back from dinner. And both of us were just giddy in the car. Both of us admitted to watching the introductory speech to the players in January, and both of us being hyped to play. I loved every second of it. Like I said in the first segment, I was the kind of teacher, I'm the kind of person that's going to shoot straight and tell it like it is. And the fact that Coach Prime went in there and put those young men on notice got me hyped. So, I have a former student who's at CU right now in college, and I reached out after Coach Prime was hired and they did the whole introductory speech to the players and the meet and greet and all that. And I said, hey, what's the vibe? Excuse me. Tell me what it's like on campus. Is everybody hyped? Is it crazy? And they said, yeah. In fact, I was on the bus with a football player the other day. I knew he was a football player because he was bigger. He was wearing the gear, and he was on the phone with what seemed to be a parent. And they said that just got real, and I don't know if he's going to keep me. So the kids on the bus are talking about it. Like, I mean, let's go. And like I said, good. Every single one of those young men needed to be put on notice because the direction of CU football has been the antithesis of the university's desired trajectory and established history. We're going to get more into the roster and incoming and outgoing transfers as we get closer to this season. I'm going to do a back-to-school pod as we get into the end of July and beginning of August, talking about CU's roster. We're going to get into CSU Rams roster and all that. But let's start talking football by looking at the CU bus schedule. We are 55 days on day of recording until kickoff. I can't wait. I cannot wait. Last year, our poor Buffs were 1-11 overall and 1-8 in conference. Ouch. And I'm going to tell you right now that when my dad and I were talking about it, we had differing opinions on week 1, but we start the season, week 1, September 2nd, in Fort Worth, Texas, against the defending Big 12 champion and runner-up TCU Horned Frogs. I'm scared, but I also think that the Buffs are going to come out and look to make a statement. And hey, it's on Fox. We get a nationally televised game right off the bat, and I love that. I love that. I'm not going to put out my predictions yet. I just want to run down the schedule, a little bit of quick hits on each game, and then, like I said in the Back to School pod, we will get to what I think is going to happen. Week 2, let's restore a tradition that I love and that I loved growing up. Week 2, at home against Nebraska, again on Fox. I love that the game's in Boulder. That growing up, this was always my favorite weekend in college football. It was like the rivalry weekend, the Thanksgiving week game. I think regardless of what happens in Fort Worth in week 1, the atmosphere in Boulder is going to be buck wild because it's CU Nebraska. Week 3, we get our third primetime game in a row against the CSU Rams. This one's on ESPN. And it is the good old Mile High Showdown. Now, I wish that this game was week 1. It used to be. This game used to be week 1. We'd kick it like the first weekend in September or the last weekend in August, depending how it fell. And it was just a great way to start the year. That in-state rivalry, CU didn't always win, but they won a lot. So the CU-CSU game and the Nebraska game were always the two that I looked forward to the most, and they were the bookends of the year, of the season growing up. But I kind of wish that this game was week 1. There'd be a lot more pageantry with it, I think. But it is what it is. It's 3 weeks. We have 3 nationally televised games. I love that. I love it. Week 4, we go up to Eugene and play the Oregon Ducks. And, conference play begins with last year's Pac-12 title game loser and a team that absolutely scares the living daylights out of me. And they always have. They're always so dynamic. And under the old CU regime, the Buffs would walk in and seem intimidated and like they didn't belong. Because they didn't. Oregon games of the past were men versus boys. So I am really excited to see how the new mentality, the new culture change addresses that sort of fear factor. Week 5, we go back home to Boulder to play USC. Probably everyone's favorite to win the Pac-12 and to make a push for a playoff spot. And rightfully so. I don't think that's a stretch. I think USC is going to be a good team. And I think this game's going to test the mettle of these young men the most. It's in Boulder, and USC's no joke. Regardless of what happens in those first 4 weeks for CU, USC is no flipping joke. So how are the Buffs going to defend home turf? Coming off of whatever happens in the 4 weeks leading up to this game. And then over week 6 and 7, the Buffs play at Arizona State and then home again against Stanford, our bottom-dwelling cohorts from last season. Yeah. Chat's blowing up because I'm hitting that SoCal talk. Yeah. Check out the SoCal Supreme Sports Show Fridays, if that's your gig. Also, give, the KC Sports with Bishop a listen. This is KC Sports with Bishop. Listen on Sundays. And Tuesday, Sin City Sports. Those are some good pods, y'all. Give them a listen. But Stanford is a game on ESPN. So, 7 weeks in, 4 national games. Unless something goes intense one way or the other, we could be getting more because as the schedules read everywhere right now, the 4 national games I've talked about are penciled in, and then you have TBD for TV schedule. So we'll see. CU goes on the bye week after the Stanford game, and then finishes the month of October at UCLA. Bruins technically middle of the road last year in the Pac-12. They had a winning record, both in and out of conference. Another team that I think gives CU fits traditionally. So as the calendar turns to November, the Buffs have back-to-back home games against Oregon State and Arizona. Good. Give me that desert team in the snow. Because you could always mark your calendar growing up, and maybe it's even earlier now. Can't even remember. You are here for the RMAC talk. We're going to get there. The Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference. Let's go. Let's go. The Ore Diggers. Okay, Larry, I'm going to stop down right here. The Ore Diggers. You're talking about the Colorado School of Mines? Yeah. Okay. We'll get there. It's the only school that recruited me when I blew out my knee. Back in my day, so you used to be able to mark your calendar by Halloween weekend. I know they almost won a title. They didn't recruit me for football, though, homie. They recruited me for basketball. You can always mark your calendar by it's going to snow on Halloween. So give me that desert team in the snow. Let's go. Please, please, please. After that, let's travel up to Pullman, Washington, play Washington State. I think Washington State might have as many questions as CU this year. The Pac-12, I think, is really very top-heavy. You've got Oregon, you've got USC, and Utah. And other than that, I think it is sort of Darwinism at its finest, survival of the fittest underneath those 3 teams. So we'll see. At the end of the day, we will see. Finally, the Buffs are going to finish off the regular season on the road against the defending Pac-12 champs, the University of Utah Utes. That game, like most of these games actually, are all too far out. And we don't know what the season's going to hold with injuries, the injection of Coach Prime's culture and philosophy, and how these young men are going to respond to that and to all of the noise surrounding the program. But I think that CU is in a good place starting the season. I'm following them on Twitter. All of the, of course, edited footage of camp and workouts and things like that looks awesome. And it looks like they're getting after it. Do I think that things will change overnight in Boulder? Well, I mean, it kind of already has. Record-wise, like I talked about with the Broncos last week, record-wise, they're not going to 180 and be 11-1. If Coach Prime is as good as I think he is, I don't think it's going to take too long to get this program back on track. That's for sure. There is something very satisfying about the black and gold and watching the running of Ralphie and just CU football up against the Flatirons. It's so nice. And when they're good, it's even better. And it's really disheartening when your only national games are at like 10 o'clock at night. Part of that is the Pac-12, and they go to the West Coast and play those teams, and they get the last game of the night slot. But I miss the days where CU was definitely an 11 o'clock like appointment viewing game. So that was a lot to take in. Let's check in the chat really quick. Just a whole lot of SoCal love, and I'm here for that. You got to be a homer. I just appreciate y'all stopping by in the chat. This has been a great episode so far. I'm having a lot of fun. But that was a lot of CU Buff stuff. Let's take a break. We come back. I want to talk realignment week. I want to talk about a discussion those of us here at IE Sports Radio had last week regarding conferences, realignments, monster conferences, things like that. So, Coach is calling a timeout. You're listening to Mile High Musings on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernan, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey sports fans, are you in the market for Florida sports or just keeping up with the latest in the Panhandle? Palm Tree Sports is a dedicated audio hub to all things sports in the Sunshine State. We cover current events, big news, heavily favored opinions all across the NFL, NBA, MLB, and so much more. So come check us out every Saturday evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For a down south education on Florida sports and athletics, it's hosted by yours truly, Corey Pujols, and is powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Welcome back to Mile High Musings on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports, and welcome to Realignment Week. I've been really pumped about this segment this whole week. So for fun, in our IE Sports Radio group chat, we started throwing around the idea of some league realignments and college monster conferences. We looked at the NBA, NHL, MLB, NFL, and as I said before, the NCAA and its consistently changing landscape. And with the constant talk of colleges moving to this conference or that conference, and with us on the verge of the University of Texas and Oklahoma University finally playing in the SEC, we played a little what-if game. Now, I don't know that I'm going to have time to get to all this, so I'm going to do my best. But we were asked to look at the leagues and the conferences and look at them through the lens of our team. and not only share if we liked this or not, this sort of realignment exercise, but how would our teams do if divisions and conferences were realigned in these ways? So really quick, I didn't take much time at this because I'm smug as hell right now. I'm sorry, I had to. But starting with the NBA, the realignment map was found on Reddit, posted by CS_IRL. And I gotta be honest with you, it doesn't matter. Nuggets are stacked. And they're winning no matter what. And next week we're going to talk about this new in-season tournament, which kind of almost realigned things. And I was chatting with the hosts of Fast Break here on IE Sports Radio. And this in-season tournament thing caught me by surprise. So I'm going to spend a lot of time on it next week. But it don't matter. Nuggets are winning. And they should be the favorites next year. We're going to get there. I then really quickly jumps to the NHL map posted by thegamehouse.com. That's house, H-A-U-S, the German spelling. And same thing, gang. The Nuggets and the Avs fall in that same category. They're so good. And the Avs made moves that we talked about last week that I think make them way better than this past season. Okay, maybe not way better, but better, as long as we can stay healthy. So I skipped over that real quick because that's layups. Give me the Nuggets and the Avs all day. Then I got to dive into MLB realignment, and this is something that intrigues me because this is something I wish would happen. So the map that we looked at is found on WordPress by Divine Right. So what I see on this map is 5 divisions. And what I say to this is, for the playoffs, give me the top 2 teams in each division, no wild cards. So you got 10 playoff teams. Don't even break it down east-west, whatever. I don't care because this really isn't. So let's run through these real quick. I don't think the Rockies would battle in this map, Larry, but we're going to talk about it. I do like it. I'm getting there. You got 5 divisions. First division is your what I'm calling Pacific division. And that's Seattle, so the Mariners, San Francisco Giants, the A's, the Dodgers, the Angels, and Padres. You might as well call it the California division. I mean, obviously Seattle's not there, and the A's are about to dip. But it is what it is. Then you got the Central. You have the Diamondbacks, the Rockies, the Royals, Kansas City Royals, the Cardinals, the Rangers, and the Astros. I would love this so much. Part of that is because the Rangers are the closest team in proximity. Doesn't mean I like them more than the Rockies. Well, yeah, okay, I don't. But I just would love that so much. I think that division makes so much sense. Then we have the Great Lakes division, which I think that's such a cool name. But you have Minnesota, Milwaukee, both Chicago teams, the Cubs and the White Sox, the Detroit Tigers, and the Cleveland Guardians. That would be a fun division. I think the Chicago teams would beat the daylights out of each other, and I would love that. You know, shout out to Chi-Town Weekly on IE Sports Radio for that one. Then you have the Northeast Division, Blue Jays, Pittsburgh Pirates, Philadelphia Phillies, the Mets, the Yankees, and the Sox. Go pack the cat. I mean, that's pretty much take Pittsburgh and, I mean, that's a split between the AL East and the NL East, so I would love that. And you have the Southeast Division. I'm calling it the Southeast because I couldn't really think of a better name for it. But you have the Baltimore Orioles, the Nationals, the Atlanta Braves, the Rays, the Marlins, and then the outlier Cincinnati Reds. I call them the outlier because they're not a Southeast team. I think the Braves and the Rays would fight for those top 2 playoff spots. I love this. I don't know that the Rockies would battle, but I mean, from a Rockies fan perspective, I think it's so much fun, and this would be such a fun division to play in because I am so sick of seeing us get our butts kicked by the same teams every single year, and it's the 3 California teams in our division, and it's nothing against California. It's just that's all I've known. And if we're going to continue to be terrible, let's at least play some different teams. Let's at least consistently play teams like the Cardinals or the Royals or the Rangers. I think, and I've always thought this, I think that the Royals and the Rockies should always be in the same division, just like the Astros and the Rangers should be in the same divisions. There's that geographic rivalry, which I guess if you want to throw it in there, the Cardinals, the Royals, and the Rockies should be in the same division. Because the Rockies, the Royals, and the Cardinals are kind of that dead center of the country zone. And I just feel like they make sense in the same division. And I guess it could be my love for the Broncos-Chiefs rivalry, which hasn't been much of a rivalry lately because Patrick Mahomes owns us. But I love the idea of Rockies-Royals, kind of that I-70 rivalry, because it already exists between sort of the Cardinals and the Royals. But add the Rockies to that mix. I would love that. I don't think that the Rockies would do any more damage. I would just like us to play different teams. If we're going to get our butts kicked, let's do it. So, Major League Baseball, I think that would be great. Let's go to the NFL. This one's harder to conceptualize for me. The conferences and divisions in this were broken down by proximity. And the math that we found was assetally.com. And I did some adjusting because it still had Oakland versus Las Vegas. And so I kind of flipped some teams here. But I also was running mileage on this because that mileage was presented on the map. And then I realized that it was too much math for me over the weekend. And it's summer. And I'm not a teacher anymore. But I don't want to do math over the summer. I can't even get my 5-year-old to do math. But, it's about proximity. So we're going to break it down into 2 conferences, 4 divisions each. First is the Western Conference, which is a true Western Conference versus the AFC and the NFC trying to pretend to be West and East conferences. Western Conference Pacific Division, Seattle, San Francisco, LA Chargers, LA Rams. Again, might as well be the California division. And then you have the Central Division, which is the Raiders, Arizona Cardinals, our beloved Broncos, and quote-unquote America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. Then in the Southern Division in the West, you have the Saints, the Texans, the Falcons, and the Titans. They're not a Western Conference team to me, but I get it because of the density of Eastern teams. The Midwest Division, there would be Kansas City, Vikings, Packers, Bears, so almost the NFC North minus the Lions. As far as the Western Conference goes, I like the Pacific Division. I like the Southern Division. I like the Midwest Division. I don't know how I feel about playing the Cowboys twice a year. I don't know. Let me get there. I would love. We're never gonna be without the Raiders. That's our most intense rivalry. More intense than the Chargers. More intense than the Chiefs. We're never going to be without the Raiders, so you got to put us together, even though in the last segment I just said Broncos-Chiefs makes sense, or in the last map that we talked about. Moving on to the Eastern Conference, you've got Tampa, Miami, Jacksonville, Carolina, a.k.a. the Florida Division. That's the Southeast Division. And then I went ahead and named these divisions. No, these ones were named. I'm wrong. Then you have the Atlantic Division, which is Washington, Baltimore, Steelers, Bills. I actually love the Atlantic Division, and Larry, you're right, Batman does need the Joker, and I don't care who's Batman in that exercise. I love the Atlantic Eastern Conference Division. The Commanders, the Ravens, the Steelers, the Bills. I think that would be awesome. Josh Allen, period, end of story. Thank you very much. And you have the Northeast Division, the Patriots, the Giants, the Jets, and the Eagles. I have the Eagles all the way in that one. Great Lakes, Browns, Bengals, Lions, Colts. Makes sense. Hard to see the Colts as a not AFC quote-unquote team. Same with the Browns. But it is what it is. I like change. I got really excited about the Major League Baseball change because I think I'm convincing myself that the Rockies playing somebody different would make them not be so god-awful. But this one's harder for me because I love those AFC West rivalries. I would miss them even though we suck currently and everybody is owning us. Like I said, we can't be without the Raiders. It would be really weird to not play the Chargers and the Chiefs. And there's some geographic rivalries that are being left out here, I think. Cowboys-Texans, geographically speaking, even though the Texans are usually pretty terrible. And what hit me the most, I think, in looking at this map was just how isolated the Broncos are in the dead middle of the country. And then I went back and looked at all of the other maps. And oh my gosh, our teams, our Colorado teams are so by themselves. Which is kind of cool because it, I don't know, forces everybody in the region to ride or die, I think. So how they do in this division, I don't know. It could be Broncos winning the division. It could be Broncos taking last. It depends on what the Raiders do. Cardinals are up and down right now with Kyler Murray. Cowboys, you don't know which team's going to show up. You don't know which Dak Prescott's going to show up. So I want to believe that the Broncos would do well in this division. But I can't put any confidence in them see the last however many years since we won with Peyton. So to wrap this segment up really, really quick, I want to talk about the NCAA. I didn't say the Raiders would take last. No, oh no, that is not your spot. The Raiders are not, Larry, the Raiders are not worse than the Broncos. They might be. I don't know. I'm excited for football season on this network. I'm going to tell you right now. So, like I said, we have this ever-changing NCAA landscape. And all of these monster conferences, and I think the Big 12, even though the Buffs aren't in the Big 12 anymore, that was like my home conference, the Big 8, the Big 12. That was my quote-unquote home conference for a while. And seeing a team like West Virginia in the Big 12 was just buck wild because they were not anywhere close to any of the schools that played in the old Big 8 or the Big 12. So we found a graphic in a post by Jake Myers that, quote-unquote, what if college football made sense geographically. And I don't have time to get into every single conference or every single division here, but basically what was proposed in our group chat is essentially 5 monster conferences, each with 2 divisions, and 7 teams were highlighted in each division here. I think that distance traveled actually needs to be a factor in NCAA conference alignment and realignment for every single sport, because it's not just the rivalry proximity and all of that, but these young men and women that play college sports are late teenagers and early 20s, and they're navigating life and they're navigating sports at a high level, and they're navigating really hard college classes because not all of them are communications majors. No hate. My uncle was a McDonald's All-American at CU for basketball. He's a communications major. He went to one of the premier engineering schools in the nation, and his focus was basketball. And some of these people, I should say a lot of these people, don't play professional sports, so they need that other thing to fall back on. So they're navigating all of these obstacles and having to travel across country, which is cool when you're young, but also it is taxing. So let me step down off my soapbox here for a minute. I don't know why that even got out, but it did. So in this exercise, Jake, we're on a first name basis now, Jake got really close to the good old Big 8. 7 teams were highlighted here. I would really love, one of the teams that wasn't highlighted is a team that we're going to talk about next week, and that's the CSU Rams. Throw CSU into the Midwest Big 7 conference and division, we would have our Big 8. In a group thread, I mean, right when we started talking about having this segment on all of our shows, I proposed a Mountain Conference, a true hybrid between the existing Mountain West Conference, teams from the Pac-12 like Utah and CU, and then some teams from the Big 12 like Kansas and Kansas State. So I said all that I said about traveling and these young people navigating high level of sports, the hardest college class or the hardest classes they've ever taken in their life because they're now in college and like growing up and learning to be on their own and all of that jazz. And yes, let's bring North Dakota State into the FCS. They can play in the Mountain Conference too. Come on with it. But yeah, because they need to grow. They need to level up, and because they're just running roughshod through Yes, for sure. So bring them in. Bring them in. I think that there's a running theme here with me and Kansas schools. But I think that the Rockies and the Royals should be in the same division. I think that the Broncos and the Chiefs should be in the same division. And I think that the CU Buffs should be in the same conference with the CSU Rams, the Kansas Jayhawks, the K-State Wildcats, and the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Those 5 schools are all super duper close to each other. And if you want to throw the Air Force Falcons in on that, you can. So those 5 or 6 schools are so close together. Geographic rivalries should and would be awesome. Plus, let's talk about the fact that those schools could recruit from the same area. And it would make more of a difference. So in my ideal NCAA conference, give me CU, CSU, Kansas, K-State, Nebraska. I don't really care who fills out the rest of that conference, but strictly speaking in geographical terms, the CU Buffs should play those other dead center schools. Simply because it's hard on travel. And there's a whole economic mojo that we could get in there with, let's cut down on some spending on travel. We have time for one more quick break, and when we come back, it's crunch time. I'm Aaron Yowell, and this is Mile High Musings, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Davidson.
It's your boy, Dentarius Live.
And we are the hosts of Fast Break here on IE Sports Radio, where we discuss everything in the world of basketball from prep to the pros.
You guys should definitely check us out, man. Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We got all the basketball information you guys need, so we look forward to you guys listening in.
And please do, because we are the best basketball show on this side of the Mississippi. And please do check us out on Twitter at FastBreakISR. D-Lock, where's our time again?
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That give you guys plenty of time on a Sunday.
Tune in.
The clock's ticking, y'all. We're back on Mile High Musings here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Now, I do want to get to a couple quick things as we wrap up episode 3. I want to thank you again for checking us out. Thank you for stopping by the live chat. It's been a blast. It's gotten me off topic, and I love that because it has actually sparked more intelligent conversations than I was having with myself. But I encourage you to check out other shows on the network, like the Fast Break Drop, which happens live right before our show. Also, don't forget to check out the Sports Couples Perspectives with Larry B and Cecilia, because maybe sports isn't your thing, and maybe pop culture maybe is more your thing. Or perhaps racing is more up your alley. You should check out the Extra Mile really quick, live. I'm checking in on those Denver Nuggets, and they are down 8 in the Nobody Cares Summer League to the Atlanta Hawks. And because the Fast Break Drop was right before my episode tonight, I had to stay up on those Nuggets. And I am that sicko, ladies and gentlemen, who watched the Nuggets' first Summer League game on Friday night. And, of course, I have a couple of hot takes. First and foremost, I think that Peyton Watson is ready. Well, I mean, he was in the first half. He came out playing a different game than everybody else, and then in the second half, he kind of got sucked into what I call Summer League ISO ball, which is James Harden-esque basketball. Dribble, 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 shoot, no pass. One pass, shoot. And I hate that kind of basketball. That is absolutely not the kind of basketball that won us the championship, and that's not the kind of basketball that is acceptable to Michael Malone. So everything that P. Watt was doing in the first half is exactly what he needs to do for us, and everything he was doing in the second half is going to make him find his way back to the G League next year. Defensively, I don't think there's any doubt that that young man can hang as a rotation guy for the Nuggets. And Peyton Watson could be the sixth man if he wants to. But it's a up to him thing, which is frustrating because a young man like that has so much talent, and I think he just needs to understand what his role is going to be. You know, he plays small forward. The Nuggets are super thin at small forward behind Michael Porter Jr. And I'm not just talking about their weight. My second hot take of Game 1 is Hunter Tyson, the rookie out of Clemson. He is my rookie dude this year. He came out and did all the things. And I know it's Summer League, but kid was gaming and had swagger, which I loved, I think, the most because it showed me that it matters. And I tuned in a little bit as I was getting ready for the pod tonight to the first quarter of the game against the Hawks, and he got called for a foul. Guy made the bucket, and he got frustrated at himself. And I like that. I like that he cares. And the ESPN broadcast team was giving him grief for it on Friday night, asking him if he'd ever made a three-pointer before. But I love it. I love it. I told you, I want dogs. I want dudes with attitude. I want guys that want to play. And Hunter Tyson shot the three. His shot is smooth, and I like it. He shot the three. He rebounded. He played defense. He was cut into the hole. He was doing all the things. He could usurp Christian Brown, which hurts me to say. He could usurp him because he can shoot better than CB. And then the last sort of in-game quick hit that I want to talk about is, as predicted when I did my draft rundown, Julian Strawther needs to work on his defense if he wants to play. He was there in the game, but you kind of forgot about him. He had a couple shots, but he needs to be willing to play defense. And same thing with, Peyton Watson needs to keep playing defense, and he needs to keep his offense inside the Jokic schemes. And if he's on the second unit, how can he be Jokic and facilitate and do all the right things? The Nuggets did sign all three of their rookies to multi-year deals right before the first Summer League game. So I think that's pretty clear. It's a pretty clear statement on what Calvin Booth and the organization think of these young men. I gotta put the gas pedal down. Here we go. So the Rapids were in action last night. That's right, the Colorado Rapids. We're talking soccer here against FC Dallas, the closest team in proximity to me. Nestled comfortably at the bottom of the standings, the Rapids came into last night's match with less than half of the points acquired that FC Dallas had in one less game played. And the Rapids actually won. They won their first home game of the season and ended their winless streak at 9. The Rapids hadn't won since May 6th. And that was right about the time the Nuggets lost their last game before losing Game 2 of the NBA Finals. Just throwing that out there for everybody because, that is what it is. Last thing, as we wrap it up here, the Nuggets and the Avalanche are both Las Vegas favorites to win their respective championships next season. I did some digging and I couldn't find out an answer because it's such a niche thing, but I wonder how many professional sports teams that play in the same city have been preseason favorites going into the same year, and how many teams that play in the same arena have been preseason favorites. So I don't know. I'll figure it out. If you know, hit me up on Twitter at MileHighMusings_IESR. But I just want to thank you so much for checking out. I have a lot more coming next week. But that's going to do it for us here today on Mile High Musings on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that it's sports. Don't forget to check out the other shows on the network. Head over to social media, give us a follow. I am Aaron Yell, signing off from the top of the mountain. Stay good, sports fans.